There's a lot of things that I've said over the years which were perceived to be crazy, and then suddenly they start to move mainstream.
I'm waiting for someone to convince me that we don't live in a simulation.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain. What if all you ever knew was a lie?
Joining us now is a man who needs no introduction. He happens to have predicted so many things that have come true. I think when 2020 came around, everyone was saying, well, I guess David Icke was right about this. He was right about that. Welcome back to the show, Mr. David Icke. David, thank you for being with us.
Thanks very much, Ryan.
Thank you. I remember the last time I saw you in person was in 2019. We were in New York City. And when I met you, I felt like I was meeting one of the Beatles because you were it was just so awesome to meet your presence. And I was trying to make a positive. It was a long time. That was when they were trying to ban your documentary film. It was kind of strange. That was like you had the film coming out, and every place you went to, they would cancel or they would do something because obviously you were putting out some information. And we sat down, we had some salad, and I placed the order. It was just awesome to be around you and to see how all your perspectives over the years have just kind of come true. So, David, the first question we have is, can you please tell us about this new book that's come out?
Yeah, it's called The Dream, and it goes on from my last book, which was called The Trap, because, you know, you can get to a certain point in uncovering conspiracy, uncovering reality, and you can reach a point of, if you like, here and no further. And you then basically create an eddy in a river, and the river is flowing by, but you're in the eddy going round and round and round. And I've never been interested in that stagnation, that way of saying, well, I've gone as far as I need to go. Because, you know, when you look at how little of reality that we can actually see, it's so tiny, the band of frequency that we call visible light. It's laughable that no matter what you think you know and what we believe we've concluded, one thing is for sure, and cannot be questioned and cannot be challenged credibly. And that is that whatever we think we know, there's always more to know. There has to be, in the situation that we find ourselves with this narrow band of frequency that we can actually perceive, when infinite reality exists beyond its frequency limits, if you like. So what I've done, Ryan, since 1990 is just pursue deeper and deeper in the rabbit hole, knowing that wherever I get, the rabbit hole goes deeper still and deeper still. And so I started out uncovering and communicating if you like, the 5 sense level of all this, the names, dates, places, the tangible. And then I reached a point of uncovering that and seeing how the web works in the world of the seen. And then I thought, but hold on a minute, when did this start? And so you go back, because obviously this massive global structure that I talk about, I call the global cult, has not been put together in 5 minutes, 5 years, 50 years, goes back a long, long time. It's been progressively put put together to the point now where it's a global entity. And so I went back and back and back, and you can get comfortably back through the Roman Empire to ancient Babylon and Egypt, and it goes further back, but you can pick it up there and run with it. And then the next question was, well, okay, it's been going since those ancient times, gathering more and more and more centralization of power until now. It's like I say, it's a global phenomenon. So there has to be a common theme. There has to be an organizational structure or force that has spanned this long period of what we call time, that this has been going on, because you've had people coming in, being born, playing a part in advancing this agenda ultimately of total global dystopia, and then dying, and other people come in, and all these different generations follow each other. That there had to be this organizational force. And that's when I started coming across the non-human element to this, what people call aliens. But having gone through all that and put all that together and been massively ridiculed for it, what was it? Socrates in ancient Greece is supposed to have said words to the effect of, wisdom is knowing how little we know. Mm-hmm. That keeps your mind open, because you know, whatever you know, there's more to know. So it's like, okay, so, but why don't we see these, quote, aliens that are manipulating human society via this global cult that all these ancient societies talk about? They call them gods in their various ways. They call them different names. But if you break it down, what they're describing is the same. And so who are these gods? And where are they? And that's when you start realizing that this reality, this human reality as we perceive it, is actually manipulated from another reality, another dimension of reality that interpenetrates this one, but is on a different frequency. Thus, we don't see it. We are influenced by it. And a lot of the so-called paranormal stuff comes from it, but we don't see it in the normal course of a human life, because the human body is programmed only to pick up this visually, this visible light frequency range.
So where's the origin of this interdimension?
Say again?
Where is the origin of this other dimension that's infringing upon us?
I mean, this other reality, esoteric thinkers and going way back have called it the fourth dimension as opposed to the third dimension. They've called it the astral. And that's basically from where this human world is actually manipulated. Because, you know, this global cult is a network of secret societies. And what are secret societies there for? To keep secrets. From who? From the general population. And indeed, through compartmentalization, from the vast majority of the people that are in the secret society network. And the great secret, or one of the many great secrets, is that this world of the seen is actually being manipulated from the unseen. And this global cult is the unseen's vehicle for manipulating the world that we perceive. And this then continued. And then I got, immediately after the turn of the millennium, in fact, just before that, I really got into the nature of reality, the illusory nature of reality, the fact that physicality is how we experience the world, but it's not actually physical, and so on and so forth. And then just after the turn of the millennium, I just had this overwhelming, if you call it knowing, if you like, that actually we live in a simulation, a very advanced version of a virtual reality game. And that you know, the people who put on a headset in a virtual reality game, it might be an empty room like this one, but they're thrashing around, and because their mind, their perception, their senses are being convinced that actually this virtual reality game is real. But they have, and we see it all the time, all this stuff.
Yeah.
But what you can do with a headset is you can do that. Oh, it's just a game. It's not real. But if the body is designed and programmed to decode the simulation, the matrix, you can't take that off. Short of leaving the body, you can't take that off. So I would just say this in terms of perception of reality and the simulation. If you are in the womb with a headset on, the developing body, if you leave the womb and your parents have got headsets on, and you go to school and all your mates have got headsets on, the teacher's got a headset on. You then go to university and your professor or your academic has got a headset on. You turn the television on and someone says, hello, good evening, here's the news, and he's got a headset on. And everything that you go to work and people around you in your job, your company, whatever, have all got headsets on, and they're all decoding reality in basically the same way, because that's what this does. It's a biological headset, let's put it that way. Then, of course, you have no other means of comparison between the reality you're experiencing and the reality that lies beyond that realm that you're experiencing. So, of course, it becomes your complete reality.
Well, how would you take it off, though? How would you take the headset off? And I'm so glad you brought up the simulation, David, because I had to say lately, when I look up at the sky, it is always when I look up at the sky, that is when I get the biggest intuition or feeling that this is a simulation. The sky just does not look real for some reason. I don't know. And I've noticed it a lot more lately. I don't know if it's always been this way. But when I look up at the sun, when I look at the moon, when I look at the formation of clouds, there's something off. It is a deep and intuitive feeling. I don't understand why, but I want to bring it to your attention.
It's funny you should say that, because around, what would it be? Maybe, I don't know, 2003, maybe something like that. I was sitting not a million miles from here at a cafe, sitting outside. And I looked up, just to look up at the sky as you're talking about. And what I saw was a massive dome.
Really?
It was the Truman Show, where it was all within that dome, but everyone thought it was real. It looked like that. And whether that's literal or symbolic, I mean, a lot of communication comes symbolically. What's interesting is that when I first had this this knowing that this is a simulation, what I also got at the same time was that the limit of the simulation at this level, we'll get into there's other levels of it, is the speed of light. And the speed of light's not the fastest speed possible. It's the speed of this this simulated reality. And in 2021, in Scientific American, an academic wrote an article in which he said, this is a simulation, i.e. believed it was a simulation. And the limit of the simulation is the speed of light, which is like nearly 20 years after I got that stuff and started talking about it. The point being, though, a very interesting point he made. He said, one of the things I've been pointing out over these simulation years, if you like, is that what we call the laws of physics in this reality are actually the laws of the simulation. They're the encoded nature of the simulation. So if you have a virtual reality game, whoever's created the game writes the codes that control the game. And that's what the laws of physics are. This is why when people have near-death experiences and they leave this reality, they experience a very different reality, very different nature of the laws of physics. And so what he was saying is that you can have the encoded rules of the game, but you're always going to be limited by your processing speed. And he related, I think rightly, the simulation limit of the speed of light to processing speed.
Okay.
And so what has been happening, as you will know, since I started talking about this, because when I got this, obviously the first thing I did was start searching around. Who anyone else saying this? And I found one guy, Nick Bostrom at Oxford University, who was saying that this could be a simulation, but the way he was describing it and how it came about is very different to the way that I see it. But what has happened since then is that more and more mainstream scientists have concluded that actually this is a simulation, because once you conclude that, suddenly so many of the great mysteries of life, as they're called, disappear because they can be explained by this simulated reality. And what's where I've gone in the dream, big time, deeper in the rabbit hole. I think there's some things in the dream. There's quite a lot in the dream that has never been written before. And what I've gone into, I started with the trap and now deeper with the dream, into this whole idea of reincarnation. So I looked at—
Is that a trap, by the way? Is that a trap?
It's a trap.
Because,
yeah.
I don't. Okay, because I have a couple of my friends, they've had really profound near-death experiences, and I talk to them, David, because I want to prepare myself, like when I do pass, to be fully aware and anticipating what's going to happen, because I don't want to reincarnate in the human form. I want to get out of it. I actually feel when I have dreams are the most. That's when I feel like I truly experience reality. I don't want to come back in the physical body again. I want to come back and go on to a different evolution.
This is well, there's many things that come from that. This is why the nature of reality is so rarely debated within the mainstream, because they don't want you to know what this reality is, because the dominoes start to fall when you start to understand. Things that are, like I say, that are unexplainable become explainable, very, very simply explained. And also you start to get the true nature of this trap, because, I've done and continue to do through the website, davidicke.com and the books and stuff, the manipulation of the world of the seen, which is obviously moving closer to a dystopia all the time, but more and more people are waking up to it, thank goodness. And so that level needs to be explored. But if you only look at the five sense world of the seen level of this conspiracy, then you're poking around in the symptoms and you're not getting near the cause. And the deeper you go in the rabbit hole, the more it takes you into other levels of reality, other dimensions of reality, the more you see where all this is coming from. And this global cult is not where it's coming from. It's a vehicle to express in this reality where it's coming from, which is another reality. So I looked at this whole reincarnation philosophy, and a few things came to my conclusion. One is that reincarnation is real. The reincarnation of consciousness is real. And secondly, the usual explanation of reincarnation is a trap. It's a nonsense. If you look at the mainstream scientific projection of the size of the universe, and you compare that with planet Earth. planet Earth is about a billionth of a pinhead compared with what they perceive to be the size of the universe. And it seems to me that the idea that you have to keep reincarnating on a billionth of a pinhead to learn the lessons so that you don't have to reincarnate is ludicrous to me. Also, the fact that you're here to learn lessons so that you can evolve to enlightenment. Okay, so why is my mind wiped of what I've learned before? So I start again with a blank sheet of paper. And it seemed to me that when you leave the body, when consciousness leaves the body, actually the trap continues, because, you know, near-death experiences, they give very consistent accounts of the tunnel or other versions of it, of being met by their religious hero, whatever religion they follow, being met by loved ones and what have you. And then there's this common theme of either you're given a choice, you can leave or you can go back, or no, your mission's not finished yet, you have to go back. And there's this concept again and again of a threshold. Sometimes it's symbolized as an archway, sometimes as a wall. I've read so many of these near-death experiences accounts, but because near-death experiences by their very nature return, they don't pass the threshold. So my question has been, what's on the other side? And as I put this together in the dream, it seems to me very clearly, because the way I work, and I've always worked, all the stuff that's turned out to be true has come from the same source. It's part intuition, like you just know that this is a simulation and the speed of light is its limit at this level. But also merging with that all the tangible things that you can access. One of the things I've done in the dream is look at people's different accounts, because there are some people who claim, and certainly the ones I quote I think are genuine, to have memory of the pre-life realm. And what I find very compelling is that those memories tend to include technology, because, you know, we think that this physical realm of human is where technology is, but that's only one level of it. Technology goes on into other dimensions as well. And you know, what we call AI, that's just exploding now and taking the world over, I say that's coming in from the astral, from this other realm. And that AI is actually running the whole bloody show on behalf of this consciousness, which expresses itself as quote, aliens in their different forms, but actually in its foundation form is a state of consciousness. The Native Americans, or some Native Americans, call it Wetiko, or a mind virus. It's a very good description of what we're talking about. And this astral technology, which is obviously very much more advanced than what we see, is actually running the whole show. And what is the whole show?
Yeah.
It seems to me, and again, this is from multiple sources over the years, that as the Morpheus character in The Matrix was holding up a battery and saying that this is a computer-generated dream world designed to turn humans into one of these, a battery, that was a profound statement of truth. Because what is happening is this force, this consciousness, this Wetiko, the Gnostics called this force Yaldabaoth, or the demiurge, different names in different cultures, but it's a state of very imbalanced, distorted consciousness. which is running this show, through AI technology. And it is manipulating human experience to generate low vibrational, emotional, and mental energy based on fear, anxiety, hatred, resentment, all these low vibrational depression, all these low vibrational states of being, as is now well established, generate frequencies. And if you are in a state of love and joy and happiness, then you are generating high frequencies. If you're in these low frequency states based around the base central state of fear, then you're generating these low vibrational frequencies. Now, because this consciousness, this Wetiko, is in a low vibrational state, it can only absorb low vibrational energy. And what's its source? We are. It's set up this, this simulation. So particularly at this level, the human level, the physical level as we perceive it, the way that it's set up is designed to generate maximum amounts of that energy, which it absorbs and feeds off, hence the battery. And so a war, like a world war, is a freaking banquet. Something like COVID or for some, human-caused climate change, both hoaxes, I would strongly suggest, are generating low vibrational emotional energy, emotional response. And so my question was, so many people in this world, and maybe, you know, a lot of people in the West don't recognize this if they haven't traveled, but if you travel, you see that the great majority of the human race is having a very, very hard time just surviving. It's not a pleasant experience. You look across Asia, across South America, Central America, Africa, it's not a pleasant experience. It's an experience where you're going to generate lots of this energy, which has been given the name of loosh in some quarters. Loosh being this low vibrational energy that this force feeds off, and we empower it through what we are giving off. And so my question was, okay, I can understand why consciousness might get caught in this trap and just like, oh yeah, what's this? Oh, gotcha. Once. And then when it gets out of the body, it goes, I ain't going back there. What? But this simulation, which operates on multiple levels, the astral is part of it, has to keep that consciousness entrapped in the wheel of samsara, as they call it, the wheel of reincarnation, because it doesn't want trapped consciousness to get the hell out into the great infinity from which it came. So there are other levels of this trap, and you know, you are given various perceptions of afterlife reality while you're living a human life. You've got heaven, you've got hell, you've got all this stuff, and you've got this religion or that religion. The idea is that when you leave the body, it's a very different reality. It's a very much nicer reality. And if you're not very careful and you're not very streetwise, as you were talking about earlier, then you can think, oh, this is heaven. It's bliss. It's like love I've never felt before. Well, hold on a second. You believe in reincarnation, right? Yeah. So what do you mean you haven't felt it before? You must have felt it lots of times. So why do you think you're feeling it for the first time? Because it's all part of what I talk about in the in the dream about the mind wipe, the way the mind is wiped before you come into each incarnation. So you don't, well, some have residual memories, but most people don't have a memory of life before coming in. It's just a start again, because they don't want you to have that memory. Why? Because you'll start to put the pieces together, which they don't want you to do. So you have this idea that you go into a nicer realm, and then you've got to learn lessons. The number of times I've read near-death experiences accounts where they've talked about, well, yes, and then I had to go before the elders and they had to look at my life, and I had my life review. You know, I'm like, excuse me, elders, stick it where it.
That's awesome.
I'll decide as unique infinite consciousness what I do with my experience, not you sitting around deciding what my next incarnation will be. And what I'm saying, Ryan, is that this is all part of this trap that holds you on the wheel. And you know, you talk of, I've read so many accounts from near-death experiences who say that, oh, I had lessons to learn. I had to come back and, I did this in a previous life, so I had to experience this and all that stuff. It's all part of the trap. And what I'm saying, just to complete the circle here, is what we're experiencing is an induced dream. An induced dream, where the dream is induced by the information that we are being fed. And I remember a long time ago, when I was a mainstream journalist at the time, and I would wake up in the morning and I'd put the radio on, and it would be a news station. And I think, oh, what's the time? Oh, I've got another 10 minutes. And I'd go back to sleep for what seemed like a long time, but it was only a few minutes. And I'd dream, day after day after day. And when I woke up from the dream related to the story that was on the radio. Oh. So that was an induced dream. And that's what I say this is. It's an induced dream. We are being given, being fed a version of reality through the headset, the biological computer, as I call it. And if we don't invoke expanded states of consciousness to override that program, to override that perception of reality we're being fed, then basically the AI, as I would say it is running the show. But what consciousness can do is override that. And the people that open to consciousness and override the program, they're called the mavericks. They're called people who are awakening. Awakening from what? Awakening from the program. Because what I'm saying in the dream, and I expand upon it in not just say it, but give the evidence that I say supports it, is that what we call mind is an AI phenomenon. It's running through this biological computer, and it's dictating our perceptions absent consciousness to override it. So I found it interesting when I look at the spiritual teachings and of various and many kinds. They have one thing in common. They have a lot in common, but they have this one in common. And that is, they say, you've got to get beyond your mind. You've got to get beyond the barrier of your mind. So my question is, so what the hell is the mind then?
Right.
What is the mind? What is this thing that we have to get over to become enlightened? So it's something that's stopping us becoming enlightened then. And I say that's an AI program running through the body.
Well, David, I love your answer. And one thing I really respect is that I love that you called out this whole council of elders, because I've heard a lot of people that have had near-death experiences that said you get the life review where you experience the action and repercussions of every action you put out into this world, which makes me wonder if these interdimensional beings that are trying to infringe upon reality will experience repercussions for what they're doing. But this idea that talking to some people who've had near-death experiences, they said, okay, well, after you die, you're in the human form, but then you become spirit. And then as you progress from spirit, then you realize that you are source. You are one part of the one infinite consciousness. And you had said many years ago, I've always taken this to heart. You said you are a point of attraction of infinite consciousness. And that quote from you has resonated with me for so many years. And sometimes when people ask you who you are, I said, well, I'm a point of attraction for infinite consciousness. But it rings so true. And if you are infinite consciousness, say, for example, you are just the one consciousness of being, wouldn't you want to have the curiosity of just trying to experience reality from all different types? I mean, do you think that this reincarnation cycle in some way may not necessarily be a vicious part of interdimensional beings, but as a result of the one being known as source, which has insatiable curiosity, which wishes to experience all different experiences through different types of its imaginary creatures, not as humans?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point, but I would say this, beyond the frequency band of visible light, which the only thing we can see as a human in terms of, here and now, is infinity, an infinity of forever to explore. And if you look at the human world, it may seem diverse to an extent, but it's not really. If you look at all the different cultures who have different ways, it seems, of looking at the world, it's amazing the common themes that you find. Okay, so you come into the world and you grow up, you go to school, you get told what to think, you get told not to think. You go to university, you get told not to think in a higher level. You go out into the world and you are constantly interacting with people who've been through the same system. You get married, you have children, you grow old, you die. Or the body does. It's an incredibly circular, repeating cycle of experience, when beyond it, all infinity, all possibility lies. The amount of possibility that humans experience is absolutely tiny. And, for me, this is a trap. It's not about experience. That one aspect of the trap is being convinced out of body, still within the simulation, but on other levels of it, that's what you're doing. You're experiencing to learn lessons, to evolve to enlightenment. What happens when you evolve to enlightenment, according to the Eastern religions? You get out of the wheel of samsara. So it's not just a case either that when you come in, you learn lessons. First of all, you're learning them all again because you've forgotten the ones that you had.
It's horrible, isn't it?
Okay, but you're learning lessons in theory, but look at what actually happens. The only time I've taken a psychoactive drug was in 2003 when I took ayahuasca in a Brazilian rainforest.
Isn't it pretty amazing?
Yeah, and a very powerful female voice spoke to me for 5 hours, as loud as mine is now. And as it was explaining the nature of reality, which has all turned out to be true, it showed me at one point a picture. And what it was a field, and there was a muddy path across the field. And then suddenly people started falling out of the sky onto the path. And they started to walk the path. And more came. And as they walked the path started to wear away, and it got deeper and deeper. And eventually it morphed into a groove on one of those old vinyl record grooves. And people were walking through in the darkness of this record groove. And what the voice was saying is, in effect, that you come in to this reality through this reincarnation cycle, and you're already programmed from previous experience, but you drop into the program far easier. You don't question it. It's almost in some subconscious way familiar. And you drop into the program. And so what can happen as you have so-called life after life after life, human, is that you become more and more and more ingrained and perceptually entrapped by the constantly repeating experience. And so you're going further away from enlightenment and an understanding of the true nature of self.
How do you break out of it?
And not closer to it.
How do you snap it? Because David, I don't want to come back. I know other people don't want to come back. I mean, is this your last one? How do you snap out of this thing? How do you consciously take efforts now in this life incarnation to ensure that you don't come back? Because I think about it all the time. I definitely don't want to come back to this reality.
I go into that in the dream, and and part of it is this, a fundamental part, is to realize it's a dream. And it's a dream you can stop dreaming. I have this phrase, the dream is the dreamer and the dreamer is the dream. This cycle of samsara is actually the dreamer dreaming the induced dream, believing it to be real. Once you realize it's not real, then the dream no longer affects you. The dream world that you've been in disappears because you have dreams in sleep, and some of them can be as real as I'm sitting here now. But you wake up and you go, oh, yeah, it was a dream. Well, this is a dream. It's just another kind of dream, and it's an induced dream, and that's why we are constantly being fed information to keep us in the dream. But once you realize it is a dream and it's all nonsense, then and all simulated nonsense, then it ceases to impact upon you because you're no longer dreaming the dream. All right, your body is still, because that's the nature of its program, its AI program, it's decoding the information from the field, from the matrix, into this reality we experience. But it's not affecting you in the same way because you're like, none of it's real. It's just a dream. And when I leave the body and they tell me I've got to go through the tunnel and I've got to learn lessons, it's all a freaking dream. And this is why they have to control our perception, not just in this reality, but of course that's what they do all the time. It is what censorship and everything is. All this stuff is about. It's about controlling perception, because from perception comes behavior. But outside of the body, in this astral realm, this other level of the simulation, they're also the target is your perception. So your perception goes from whatever you believe in the human experience, and you go out, and now you've got to believe something else that will get you back here. And when you get back here, you'll forget all that's gone on there, and you'll just think you're just another human life, and what's going on? It's the first one, is it, or whatever? I don't know, but I can't remember anything beyond it. And so this trap goes on and on and on. So when I say let go of the dream, realize it's all a dream, I mean all of it. Every conflict, every, oh my God, have you heard the latest? Every drama. See, what the drama does is it holds your attention. And what is controlling perception? It's controlling attention. Mm-hmm. And what you focus upon becomes your sense of reality. You know, if I'm just focused on that finger now, the rest of the room has disappeared. That's my reality. That's my attention, my point of attention. And so you can have, as we are, a point of attention within infinite reality. That's what we are. But what point of attention? Are you at a point of attention where you're seeing it? You're seeing the the panorama, the tapestry of infinite reality? Or have you been induced and induced and induced to focus your attention on the fact that you're human? And that's who you are. We're not human. Human is an experience. It's not an I. And if you notice, Ryan, because once you start to break this down and you see how it all works, things that happen in everyday life start to make more and more sense and why they're happening. So point of attention, human point of attention, once upon a time. I am a man. I am a human man having a life as a human man. I am a human woman having a life as a human woman. They were your points of attention. Now you've got this long list of letters where your point of attention, your self-identity, who you perceive yourself to be, becomes the nature of your sexuality, the nature of the color of your skin, and all these things that are subdivisions of the previous I'm a man, I'm a woman, in the whole trans thing, everything, become more and more myopic versions of the I. And so all the time, your focus of attention on self-identity, for instance, and reality is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Instead of what it needs to do to get out of this nonsense is to become wider and wider and more expansive. Because this cult is in the end driven by a non-human force in another reality, although it's very, in terms of frequency, close to this one. The cult itself is compartmentalized, massively so. So the inner core of this cult within our reality knows why things are happening and why things are being made to happen. The further you come down out of the inner circle of the cult into other levels of the cult, compartmentalized levels, now they're starting just to do it because they're told to do it. You know, you've got people like Larry Fink at BlackRock and these others like Vanguard and State Street, and these big, massive trillion-dollar investment operations who are investing in companies, and they're saying to them, this is what you will do or there'll be trouble. So you will have this diversity trend.
The ESG scores?
Yeah, you will do that or you will be in trouble. So they do it because they don't want to be in trouble. And like Bud Light went through the same process of this wokeness that's devastated it financially. But there is this network that is pressurizing those corporations that don't want to do it into doing it, into going down this road where you've got more and more and more and more and more myopic senses of identity. And every time you go into a smaller one, you're getting further and further away from the true I, which is a state of infinite awareness, a state of attention within infinite awareness. And what they're after is your attention, and they want to get it as myopic as possible. And this is why you're having this hysteria of censorship, because the censorship's saying, if we're going to control and hijack completely people's perception of attention, then we can't let them have access to other ways of looking at the world and reality. We can't. We've got to shut them down, and that's what they, of course.
Well, what's their end game, David? I mean, it wasn't always like this. What's their end game?
Just to finish this point,
right? Sorry.
This is why they want to connect the human brain to AI, because then they don't have to manipulate your attention anymore. They're going to do it direct, and this is why this stuff is going on. And so it's all about attention. It's all about perception and making your self-identity as myopic as possible. Sorry, mate, go on.
No, no worry. I'm sorry for interrupting. Is this what is their end game, and are you hopeful for humanity? Because I remember when I was growing up, life wasn't like this. It just became more and more totalitarian as we got older, and with the technology, it just seems to get progressively crazier. So I wonder, are we going to get to this point where we're going to live in this 1984 dystopia on steroids, or is humanity ever going to get out of this? I mean, people like you and people like Jeff and other people who are standing up, and people like Ron Paul, are you guys like the last of the humanity's last stand for freedom, or are we actually on the cusp of a major breakthrough? Because it just seems like they're in control, or they're getting a lot of people to believe that they're in control. Where do you see things going?
Well, that depends on how many people are awakened from the dream, to be honest.
Okay.
And people are awakening from the dream, but different levels of it, not the level I'm talking about now, but levels of the fact that there is a global manipulation going on, which is pushing the world towards dystopia. More and more people since COVID have got that one. Mm. So that's encouraging, because when I started out in 1990, I mean, you know, you couldn't.
You were a lone wolf.
Interest, you know. I mean, but now it's fantastic how many people can see at least levels of where this is going. But it's difficult to call, because it depends on how many people awaken from the dream. And what we've seen over the years, over the decades, the millennia, is that there are three types of mentality, basically. And the first two types have been responsible for every tyranny in history. The first type is that which just takes what it's told by authority and believes it without question, just does what it's told. And the second type is that which can see it's not right and would rather not do it, but fears the consequences for itself of not doing it, and thus does it anyway. Now, those two mentalities have been responsible for every tyranny in history, because fascists, for instance, don't bring in fascism. There's never enough of them to do it. Fascism emerges because the population acquiesced to fascism, and in the end acquiesced to it so much it becomes them. And then you've got the third group, and this is the group we're talking about now, which can see that it's not right on some level, or even massively, or to some point can see it's not right, and will not cooperate with it, will not cooperate with its own enslavement, will not cooperate with its own children and grandchildren's enslavement. And that's the group that has to get bigger and bigger and bigger, because, you know, you can talk about politicians, and for me, that's just a massive diversion. Mm. See, for me, politics is a holding position. You can have politicians in there that will really push the agenda forward, like Biden. Well, not Biden, know his own name, but I mean, the people running Biden's administration have really pushed this on. And then you can have others come along and say they represent the people that don't want it. But still, even if they're genuine, and not many are, they'll say, tell you what, give me your power and I'll sort it. And it's a holding position. Okay, so we'll just sit here then and you'll sort it. You know, all this QAnon stuff. Yeah. Or, you know, trust the plan. What bloody plan, right? And so it's a holding position. And it buys time to push on this agenda to where they want it to be by 2030 and even earlier. And it's obscuring very simple mathematics. There's 8 billion people in the world, they tell us. And the number of people in full knowledge who are pushing the world in this direction is a fraction, a tiny, tiny, almost laughable fraction in full knowledge. And the rest are just doing what they're told because that's what they do. and imposing on people what the tiny few have decided is going to be imposed on the people. So if you look at pure mathematics, there's no way in the world that a tiny few should be able to impose its will upon 8 billion people. The fact that he can do it is the first two groups. That's how it's done. And the third group is where the answer lies. And it's in complete non-cooperation with our own enslavement. I mean, we've got a guy in London, right, who is mayor of London. He's called Sadiq Khan, extraordinarily sinister man, Labour Party politician, but actually just a gopher for the deeper levels of this. And he's imposing upon the entirety of London, outer London as well, something called the ULEZ policy, ultra low emission zone. And by the end of this month, it will mean that people who don't have vehicles that are acceptable to this ULEZ policy are going to have to pay £12.50 a day to use their vehicle. And he's putting cameras all over the place and number plate cameras to pick up this stuff, because it's not really for that. It's for obviously much more expansive control reasons. Now, I don't know, what is it, 10 million, probably more people in London, and probably 8 million don't want it. But one man is imposing it. Now, what's starting to happen in London is more and more people are taking action to not cooperate with it. We've even got councils in London now who are saying we won't put up the signs. Councils within the Great London urban area that this Sadiq Khan runs are saying we won't put your signs up, so you can't have your bloody ULEZ. And this is what needs to happen. More and more people need to first of all see what's happening, and then I'm not having it. Because if people, like in the second group, or I can see some of it, I don't want it, but what are the consequences for me? They should just focus on this. The consequences of you accepting it and acquiescing to it are going to be far, far more sinister and far more horrific than you standing up now and saying, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Yeah. And this is what it needs. You know, that guy, Sadiq Khan, it's just an example, but a very potent one. He sits on top of a structure where there's people all the way down the structure of the Greater London Council that are administering and putting into imposing on the people policies of this one man. It's just very symbolic of this global cult and how it works. Now, a lot of them, certainly in the lower levels of the council, will be subject to this £12.50 a day because they won't have a vehicle that complies with the ULEZ policy. But they're still helping to impose it. And, you know, if people just said, we're not cooperating, we are not going to do this, then this guy, Khan, has no power. The power is in the acquiescence of people to what he says should happen. One bloke. And, you know, people say it's not possible for a few to control the world. It's dead easy. It's dead easy because of this structure. If you imagine a pyramid, and at the top, you've got the inner core of this cult. And as you come down, you've got progressively levels of the pyramid, human society, that have less and less and less and less and less knowledge that there is an inner circle of the cult, or there is a cult at all. And so the whole pyramid, the whole of human society, is controlled by a simple combination of imposition and acquiescence. Without the acquiescence, there can be no imposition. So the two have to go together. So the inner core of the cult decides this is what the policy is going to be for the world, for the country, whatever it is. And the next level under them of the structure says, I'm going to acquiesce to what you told me, and I'm going to impose it on the level below me. And very soon after you come down from that inner core of the cult, you're meeting levels of human society that have no idea there is a cult. All they're doing is accepting imposition from their perceived above and imposing it on their perceived below. And so it comes down the pyramid: imposition, acquiescence, imposition, acquiescence, imposition, acquiescence, until you reach the level of the mass of the population. And if we acquiesce to that level of the pyramid that's imposing it upon us, imposing that will upon us, governments, corporations, banking systems, all these levels that impose upon us, then we complete the circuit. We complete a circuit between the inner core of the cult and the mass of the population, in which the will of the cult becomes the life of the population, simply through imposition, acquiescence, imposition, acquiescence. And at some point, that acquiescence has to be broken, because without that, there can be no imposition. But what it takes is, first of all, the self-respect to look and see and question, and then the self-respect to say, I'm not bloody having it, and I'm not playing my part in it being imposed. And if enough people do that, the house of cards comes down, because that's what it is, a house of cards. And what's interesting is that, again, if you look at what brings down tyrannies through history, it's never the majority. It's never even nearly the majority. It might be in the end, and they say, oh, we did it. Well, actually, you just followed those who did it. But it's a small number of people, relatively, who are in that mindset of, I have self-respect, and I'm not giving it to you. And I'm not accepting what you are seeking to impose upon me and my family. They're the ones that start the dominoes falling, until eventually the whole thing comes down. And it's never 50%. It's never even nearly 50%, which is very comforting, because it ain't got to be 50% to do it now. But that's the mentality that we want. And you know, a lot of this, all of this, in fact, this spiritual awareness and this knowledge of the true self-identity, the true infinite I, and what I'm talking about, absolutely come together. Because if you believe that what you are is a human being for 70 years and 10 or less, then that gives you a certain way of looking at the world. And you're seeking to eke out your human life as long as you can. So it's like, that's why people give their power to doctors. Oh, save me, doctor, so I can stay here a bit longer. Or, you know, I'm going to keep my head down because I don't want the consequences on my 70 years and 10. But when you understand that this is just a brief experience called human, and this is just the vehicle that allows you infinite awareness, infinite consciousness, all that is, has been, and ever can be, to experience this lunatic asylum for a short time, then how long you stay here and what happens to you while you are here takes on a very different perspective. Because now you know this is just a brief experience. So what happens, happens. But what I'm going to do while I am here is I'm going to have my self-respect, and I'm not going to accept tyranny. And that will allow you, that does allow you to say things and do things that are very different to someone who's in the myopia of I'm just a human and that's all I am. So I want to live as long as I can. What you find is too, that as you expand your awareness and you tap into these massively more expansive awareness levels of reality, and they start to work through you, you find that actually the power that you thought you didn't have, you do have, and how you you can avoid the consequences that others fear because you have taken control of your reality. You've taken control of your dream. You know that this is an induced dream. You know that you have the power connected to these expansive levels of awareness to dictate your own dream. And in that way, the whole house of cards comes down because the whole structure of this simulation is based on control of perception and making that perception as myopic as possible. And it's interesting, Ryan, you know, when you look at the difference between the human reality and the after human reality, the similarities are absolutely fantastic. They may seem different because the after human reality is different because they want to induce the fact that we're in some kind of heaven or spiritual bloody realm. In fact, people call it the spirit realm, the spirit world. But actually, what I find when I look at the world and I look at these things is it's not the differences that strike me. It's how so much is the same. Okay, so you're in the human world, and we're in those first two mentalities, particularly the first one, which just follows authority without question, because authority tells it what to think. Because I've got no power. You're up there, see, and I'm down here. So you tell me what to do because I don't know. That's the mentality. So you give your power away to authority. That's what you do. That's why we got into this mess. You leave the body, and elders are there. And
I'm not digging the elders when I'm dead. Archangels, and
not
impressed with them either.
Spiritual teachers, right? They're there, and they're now your new authority. You've gone from, well, what's the Prime Minister say? What's the President say? What does Bill Gates say? To, oh, what do the elders say? It's the same mentality. Giving
that is awesome.
Power away to your perceived betters. You are all that is, has been, and ever can be. How much better do you want to be?
I've never heard anyone call them out before. I know we're first time. I'd love to just ask you one more question because I love what you just said. David, I've had a shift in perspective in the last couple of months. I just want to share this with you, and I don't know if this resonates with you at all, but I used to see what was going on in the world, and I would always get angry. I get an emotional reaction, get very angry. And then I started changing where instead of getting angry, I started laughing at it. I started laughing at the evil. And I feel like it was a shift in perception. I feel like I was just pissing off the evil a lot more by laughing at it. And then on top of that, instead of trying to always talk to people about what was going on in the world, I try to make it a point to make someone feel good or to pay them a compliment, to put them in a positive state. And based on what you said before about the simulated reality, about how these beings are feasting upon human anxiety and anger, can you combat this darkness by just being good to people, just by being kind and genuine, by sharing love, and just by putting people in a state where they're not feeling anxiety? If you see someone that's down, can you make them laugh? Is that part of the tools to actually push back against evil?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you're switching the tap off, you're turning the battery off when you do that. And, you know, that's a very good point that you make about authority too. I've made it so many times myself. Authority has to be obeyed. It has a sense of omnipotence. You know, you see, you know, that we've got a Labour Party in this country that has an anthem called the red flag, you know, the red flag flying here. But there's another version of it which goes, the working class can kiss my ass. I've got the foreman's job at last. In other words, you get a bit of authority and suddenly you're better than everybody else. Now, what undresses that mentality faster than anything, I know because I've done it, is not taking it seriously. Not not being intimidated by it. You know, I'm thinking, so who are you? Yeah, you know, I say to some of these people over the years, you know, like police officers and people with uniforms on of various kinds. You've got no power, mate. Your power's in the uniform, which is an extension of the state. You're just animating it. Take your uniform off. Where's your power? You got none. You know, so you don't take them seriously, and you do laugh. You know, you will have found this if you get in a state where someone's really coming on the old authority. If you just laugh at them, you're so funny, you are. And they don't know what to do, because their dynamic is, I have the power and you acquiesce to my power. When you don't, they don't know what to do. And that's why I've lived my life over the last 34 years now, when I've been on this road, just actually calling these people out and calling them what they are. I mean, let's not look at the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, and say, oh, he's an intelligent man. He's a moron. He's a moron reading his script written for him. What do I say today? Oh, we've gone from climate crisis to it's now not global warming, it's global. Does that say boiling? Yeah, boiling. It's boiling. Yeah, he's a moron reading his script. And all these people are in the world of the scene. So you just don't take them seriously. And like I said in relation to politics, instead of looking for a savior and looking for someone to do it for you who won't, holding position, just stop cooperating with your own enslavement. And as more and more people do that, the whole house of cards comes down, because who's holding it together? We are.
We are. Gotta wake them up. Mr. David Icke, I want to thank you so much for being with us today. And I'll tell you, you are such a trip. I love your perspectives, and you are you were the lone wolf. And I just love how, again, in 2020, everyone's like, well, I guess David Icke was right about a few things. No, you're right about a lot of things. David's new book is The Dream, The Extraordinary Revelation of Who We Are and Where We Are. It's coming out. We'll put a link on there. And again, go to davidicke.com. Love your news updates. And David, thank you for all that you do for humanity. You are a great warrior. Thank you.
Well, thanks. It's a great pleasure. The book's open for pre-order now. It's out on September the 1st. And I'm on well, it's going to be interesting, Brian, actually, because I'm doing a speaking tour in England for the first time.
Is that the hidden tour?
Yeah, the secret tour. Yeah, I'm banned from 26 European countries.
Good. Wow.
Yeah, and Australia, you know. But I'm trying to talk in my own country now. Well, the Scotland and Ireland and Wales and England. But it's called the Secret Tour because this is where we've got. We're only letting the audience know. We're telling them the city it's in, but we're only letting the audience know the actual venue 90 minutes before I start. Because if the venue is known before, then they just get massively targeted until they give up. And then, you know, you don't have a venue to speak at. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. But, you know, 34 years in, you just keep going. You don't stop. You don't stop and say, oh, no, don't say that about me. Don't say what you like about me. Boom, boom, boom. And you keep going. And you know, you'll have found this. I've certainly found this. You've got people, oh, yeah, stop him, oh, he's this. And then they fade away. Whatever happened to them? Oh, no. Boom, boom, boom. And then others come in and they have a go and they fade away. Whatever happened to them? I haven't seen them, heard from them for ages. Boom, boom. And you just keep moving and keep walking. And you don't get caught in defending yourself or trying to justify yourself. You just do what you know to be right, and the outcome will take care of itself.